Welcome into the Alabama Football Report. I am your host, Chris Daughtery. Coming up on today's show, I want to give kind of just a, mini preview to this Week 5 matchup between Alabama and Georgia. It's going to be a really, really good game. I cannot wait for it. Georgia early on opening up as a 3.5-point favorite. I think it's going to be a really close game down to the wire. And I will say this right off the bat, too. The way that Georgia's played in the first 3 weeks and how Alabama's kind of going up, I do think this is a very, very winnable game for the Crimson Tide. So let me know in the comment section right now. Predict the score to the Alabama versus Georgia game coming up here in just a couple of weeks. Got the bye week this week and then a very big week ahead of us for that Georgia game. So let me know your score predictions in the comments right now. Look, Georgia's offense really has not looked very good in the first couple weeks of the season. Right now, tied for 61st in the country, only 31 points per game for Georgia. That offense has just not looked very good. They've been struggling along the offensive line, and Carson Beck really hasn't looked very good either. And I think going up against this Alabama defense, who I think is getting better and better every single week, I think it's going to be, a tougher game for Georgia than a lot of people are, really giving credit for. And for this game, there is possibly going to be a special guest in attendance that we have seen in an Alabama or at an Alabama game before. There's a possibility that Donald Trump might be in Tuscaloosa for this game. And, we're not going to get political or anything like that because that's not what we do here at the Alabama Football Report. But it is out there that there is a possibility that Donald Trump is looking into coming to this game against Georgia. The guy likes college football. What can I say? Look, and we've seen Donald Trump at Alabama games before. That national championship game in 2017, he was in attendance for that. Crimson Tide ended up winning that game 26-23. That was that second and 26 game, so very, very magical there. 2019, that LSU game, he was in Tuscaloosa for that game. I was in Tuscaloosa for that game. I remember just the vibes in Tuscaloosa were absolutely insane. It took forever to get into the stadium. So if you are, planning on going to that game, I would definitely get to the stadium, as early as possible for that game. So, Alabama's 1-1 with Donald Trump in attendance. So try to make it 2-1 this time. So let me know right now, who do you guys got? This should be the easiest question you're going to answer on today's show. Type A if you think Alabama's going to win this game, or type G if you think it's going to be Georgia. It is the pinned comment of today's video. So if that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. You can ignore it. I want to see a bunch of A's in the comment section of today's show. Look, like I said, man, Georgia, I don't think has looked very good the first couple of games of the season. That first game against Clemson was, look, the score is not really indicative of how that game was really unfolding. Georgia ended up winning it 34-3, but, they were only up 6-0 at halftime, scored 14 points in the third, 14 points in the fourth quarter as well. And really, Clemson's defense is still pretty solid. They just don't have anything going for them on offense. So, at the end of the day, their defense just kind of got tired towards, the end of the game, and Georgia was able to take advantage of that. Really nothing to take away from that Tennessee Tech game. It's Tennessee Tech, so, it's kind of like a little bit of a – honestly, it's probably easier than practice for them because Georgia's got so many guys 4 or 5 stars just like Alabama does. But that game against Kentucky is very, very interesting. Another game where Georgia's offense could get nothing going in the first half. It was Kentucky was actually winning that game 6-3 at halftime. And even after halftime, Georgia was not, really able to get anything going. I thought they got really bullied in the trenches, both on offense and on defense. But, Georgia has been dealing with some injuries on both the offensive line and defensive line that we'll talk about a little bit later in today's show. But look, the biggest question mark is going to be, can Jalen Milroe take care of the ball, and can Carson Beck really do anything for Georgia? Because I don't think he has really, exceeded those expectations of somebody who was supposedly supposed to be a top 3 quarterback in this coming up draft. He's supposedly supposed to be, a top 3 contender for the Heisman this year. And, look, in the first couple of games, he hasn't really been able to do anything for Georgia, make plays or anything like that. So I do think if Alabama can get after him, they got a good chance of winning this game. And I think for Alabama on the offensive side of the ball, one thing I noticed in that Kentucky game was the fact that Kentucky kept going after Dalen Everett, cornerback for Georgia. And really, this should be 6 for 6 on those completions and attempts. The only incompletion, it was a drop by Kentucky, went right through the wide receiver's hands. So, there's a chance number 6 for Georgia could get taken advantage of in this game, because I really, really like what Alabama is really doing on the offensive side of the ball, really scheming guys open. And, that's something that I think Nick Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer have done a very good job of so far in this season. I think Alabama really needs to dominate in the trenches if they want to win this game, though, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Like I said, Georgia is really going through it when it comes to those injuries, and one of their best offensive linemen, Tate Ratledge, is going to miss this game. He is out for the next couple of weeks with a sprained MCL and a sprained ankle. So he's going to be out. You also had left tackles Everett Green. He was really, really bad in that game versus Kentucky. 4 quarterback pressures. They also had another left tackle in there, Monroe Feeling, who gave up 2 pressures in that game against Kentucky as well. So Alabama on the defensive line, I think they have a really good chance to really take advantage of Georgia and put that pressure on Carson Beck, because historically he hasn't done very good under pressure. Some more injury news for Georgia, though. Some positive injury news for Georgia. Mykel Williams, Jordan Hall, and Warren Brinson. All 3 of those guys were out for Georgia when they played Kentucky. They are all we'll put probable on there for them. But as of right now, it sounds like they are going to be good to go for this game coming up here in a couple of weeks for Alabama. Guys, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor today. That is Factor Meals. Guys, look, with football season in full swing right now, I have 0 time to cook once I get home. And I really don't want to, clean up the kitchen afterwards either. That's why I use Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you guys are, you will always have time to enjoy nutritious, great-tasting meals. Make today the day that you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you guys waiting for? They have 35 different meal options and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every single week, and you will always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals this month with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you guys can trust. Head to factormeals.com/BamaChat50 and use promo code BamaChat50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month's order as well. That's code BamaChat50 at factormeals.com/BamaChat50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. That link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. Going back to that dominating the trenches part that we talked about just a minute ago. Look, man, I think LT Overton is really going to be an X factor in this game because he has been just absolutely ruthless to opposing offensive lines so far in the first few games of the season. Not going crazy with the I think 11 tackles in the first 3 games is pretty good, actually. A TFL, he had a sack, had a forced fumble against Wisconsin that I think Wisconsin actually ended up getting back, but still, man, just the fact that he's able to get back there and wreak havoc. 12 pressures so far in the first 3 games is incredible. And, man, like I said, they're going to have to get after Carson Beck. I do not want him to have a lot of time in the pocket because that's when Carson Beck is most dangerous. And I will say, too, Tim Smith, when we talked about him earlier, before the season started, he was a guy that I was like, I don't know how much of an impact Tim Smith is going to have. I didn't think he, had been, great for you the first 4 years of his career at Alabama. But I will say, Tim Smith has gotten a lot better this year, and not necessarily lighting it up on the stat sheet, but he is really wreaking havoc on the defensive line for Alabama and really allowing some of those other playmakers to, be able to make plays for you as well. He's been blowing up the run, and somebody else might make the tackle. That's great team football. Really like how Jaheim Otis has looked as well. Tim Keenan, he's looked absolutely incredible. LT Overton, Jamarian Latham, both of those guys have been really, really good for you. James Smith, even a possibility maybe that, he could go in that game versus Georgia as well. Alabama's linebackers, you got Quay Russaw, a little bit banged up in that game versus Wisconsin, but there is a, positive feeling that he will be good to go in this game. And even if he's not, you still got Quandarius Robinson, who I think has played really well for you as well. And your leading tackler, man, Jahad Campbell, they've been lining him up everywhere on the field. Sometimes he's lining up as an edge rusher. Sometimes he's lining up, just as a regular middle linebacker. And he's making plays all over the field for Alabama. Going to have to step up big against this game against Georgia. So let me know, guys, in the comments section, what is your confidence level in Alabama beating the Georgia Bulldogs here in a couple of weeks? Scale it for me, 1 to 10. 1, you think Georgia win this game, there's no chance for the Crimson Tide. Or 10, Alabama goes out there and they blow them out. They cover the, well, if they win, they will cover the spread. But, they go out, blow them out, and, just be really dominant. Let me know your confidence level in Alabama beating the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, like I said, I don't think Georgia has really, been explosive on offense. Trevor Etienne has been okay for them. We missed the first game of the season with a suspension, but still averaging 6.5 yards per carry. You got Branson Robinson, who hasn't really been incredible for them, but still 2 touchdowns on the year. And then Nate Frazier, a freshman running back, 20 carries for him for over 100 yards and a touchdown. 5.7 averaging per carry. So, Georgia still got dogs. They haven't looked amazing the first couple of weeks of the season, but they are, they have a bye week this week as well. And look, I trust Kirby Smart to get those guys right, off of a bye week. When it comes to the receivers, some of the guys you're going to be seeing, Dominic Lovett, 12 receptions on the year for 155 yards. Him and Arian Smith are really, I think, going to be the top 2 targets for Georgia in this game. But I will say, I do think Carson Beck is people always talked a bunch of crap about Alabama in the past for having game managers. Well, it doesn't really matter if you're able to win national championships with those guys. So I think Carson Beck is going to be able to find these guys. And, he has missed some throws this year. He missed a couple of throws as well against Kentucky that, could have gone for really, really big chunk plays. And going up against Alabama's young secondary, inexperienced secondary, especially at that cornerback position, those guys have really got to stick on them because, look, I don't think coming off a bye week that Carson Beck is really going to miss, those wide open wide receivers. And like I said, I really want to get some pressure on Carson Beck to try to force him into making some bad decisions in this game. And I would love to see some disguised pressures from Alabama. You go back to that week against South Florida, they did a phenomenal job against Alabama's offense when it comes to disguising pressures. You had guys on the left side that were coming up looking like they were about to come. Jalen Milroe shifts the offensive line protection over to that side. Those guys drop back in coverage, and then the pressure comes from the right-hand side. I think Kentucky did a very good job as well doing that against Georgia, and that kind of caused some of that strain on Carson Beck. So, if other teams can do it, Alabama can absolutely do it as well. And Kane Womack yesterday talked about the fact that we haven't really seen anything out of Alabama's defense from what they're capable of so far when it comes to a play calling and scheme perspective. So I would love to see Alabama, bring just different kinds of pressures and really be able to confuse this offensive line for Georgia right now. That is pieced together and really just, bring it to Carson Beck and try to make him make some bad decisions. Make sure you guys are subscribed right here to the Alabama Football Report. We will be off this week, but we will be live for that Alabama versus Georgia game coming up in Week 5. So do not miss out. Make sure you guys are subscribed at youtube.com/@RollTideTV.